Hi, welcome back. Thanks for watching this. This is a video that I made to help us explore the idea of multiplying a whole number and a fraction. We looked at how we multiply two fractions, or we're finding a fraction of a fraction, like 1/2 of 1/4, that kind of thing. So now we're going to look at what happens if one of them is a whole number. So we have 4 times 1/3 is this example that I'm going to start with. And again, if you have pencil and paper or pen and paper that you can kind of follow along with, that would be super. And as always, stop this, pause it, go back and watch it again. Do what you need to do to help you make sense of it. I'll do my best to make it as clear as possible. So with this example of 4 times 1/3, I want you to remember that, let me switch colors here, that this multiplication is really telling us groups of. 5 groups of 4 is 20. 5 times 4 is 20. 3 groups of 3 is 9. 3 times 3 is 9. So that's what I think will help us remember what it is that we're doing here. This is really 4 groups of 1/3, sorry, not 3, but 1/3. So if we think of it that way, we can look at it as an addition problem. 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3. Not the most exciting or efficient, but it does help us maybe make sense of it, hopefully make sense of it. I have a third and a third and a third and a third. I have the same denominator, third, 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 third. So it's no different than when you're adding bananas or chairs or grapefruit or whatever. If you're adding the same thing, you just count them up. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is 4/3. So if we kind of add that to our original expression here, we have 4 times 1/3 equals 4/3. Well, like we've done all year, can we be pattern seekers? Can we look for patterns in numbers? And maybe you start to see something and go, oh, I think I see maybe what's going on here. Well, we don't really know it's a pattern until we see a couple other examples and see if it holds true. So let's look at another one here. Let me clean this up, get rid of it. And now we will do, not just me, hopefully you're doing this with me. Let's look at 3 groups of 3 times. Let's do 1/5 this time. So what would 3 groups of 1/5 be? Well, remember, this multiplication symbol is, groups of. So let's think of it as 3 groups of a fifth. So a fifth, and a fifth, and a fifth. And same idea. I know I have the same denominators, a fifth, a fifth, a fifth. So I'm just going to add them together. This becomes 3/5. So this is 3 groups of 3 times 1/5 is 3/5. Did the pattern you noticed before hold true? Is it working? Did it kind of work again, so to speak? Hopefully. Or maybe if you didn't see a pattern, maybe you're starting to see something now. Let's do one more. I'll choose something that doesn't have a unit fraction where the numerator, isn't a 1. So let's do 5 times 5 groups of. We'll do 2/3 and make it a little more interesting here. So 5 times 2/3. Again, groups of. This is 5 groups of 2/3. So that's 2/3 plus 2/3 plus 2/3 plus 2/3. Good reminder of why we come up with multiplication. I don't have to do this every single time. But I have the same denominator. I've got the same size piece every single time. So I can, thankfully, just total them up, count them up. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So that is 10/3, which looks like a what kind of fraction? Yes, that is an improper fraction. So 5 times 2/3 gives us 10/3. Again, did your pattern work? Did you maybe have an idea of what the answer was before we even got there? If so, that's fantastic. So let's look at our 3 examples here, all on the same slide or same sheet, and we'll see if we can maybe draw a conclusion here. So the first one was 4 times a third, 4 groups of a third, and we ended up with 4 thirds. Then we had 3 times a fifth, 3 groups of a fifth, and that gave us 3 fifths. And the last one was 5 groups of, or 5 times, oh, that's a terrible 2. 2 thirds, and that gave us 10 thirds. Do you notice anything? Do you see something? Well, maybe you're starting to realize, hey, it looks like we're taking the whole number and multiplying it by the numerator, and it's giving us the numerator. 4 times 1 is 4. Switch colors here. 3 times 1 is 3. 5 times a terrible 2, but still a 2, is 10. Well, if you notice that, you're absolutely right. That's exactly what's happening. But now we have to figure out, well, what do we do with the denominator? Do we just always leave it the same? Is it always just, we just don't touch it kind of thing? Well, let's look at one example a little more closely, and then we'll see what's really going on here. So we'll pick the 3 times a fifth. That's just a pick one, doesn't really matter. So we know that this is 3 fifths. We figured that out. And we also figured out that we're taking the 3 and we're multiplying it by the numerator, and that gives us the numerator of our answer. What we're trying to figure out is what happens with the denominator. Well, what is this 3? It's a silly kind of question, and it's almost so obvious it's hard to answer. This is 3 wholes. Well, we can write whole numbers as a fraction. We can actually write them as a fraction over 1. It's kind of like the idea of writing money. We write $1 like this. We can also write $1 like that. They're worth the same. We just don't often write the decimal and the 2 zeros because we don't need it. Well, we don't often need the 1 as a denominator because we know it's a whole, but it's always there. So we're going to take that idea of wholes being a fraction. That's 3 over 1. Now, let me rewrite it so it's a little neater. So now I have 3 over 1 times 1 fifth, or 1 over 5. And we know, again, the answer is 3 fifths. Well, we've discovered that we're multiplying the numerators and we're getting the numerator. But now, if I realize, oh wait, I have 2 fractions. And I know when I have 2 fractions, I multiply the numerators and the denominators. So the pattern that we used for multiplying fractions works for multiplying whole numbers and fractions as well. And that is great news, hopefully. We don't have to relearn or learn something new. So if we take that idea, we can apply it to this, as long as we remember that whole numbers can be written as a fraction also. So I'm going to give you one more just to kind of do on your own, and we're going to call it a day. So let's do 6 groups of 6 times 1/8. So what would 6 times 1/8 be? You can pause it if you want to work it out. I'm going to do it in a second here. So we want to remember 6 wholes, this first one. I can write that as a fraction. That is 6 over 1. And now I can multiply the numerators. 6 times 1 is 6. 1 times 8 is 8. So 6 groups of 1/8, 6 times 1/8 is 6/8. And if I really want to check, I can think of it again as groups. So 1/8, 1/8, 1/8, that's 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. So there you go. So hopefully that helps you make sense of multiplying whole numbers and fractions. Thanks for watching.